Board meeting for September 3rd. I'm the chair, Doug Breskin. To my left, we have Vaughn Dugan, Peter Goodwin, Roger Murray, Steve Webster is the vice chair, Kathy Barnard, Jane Nielsen, Brad Harriman as the selectman's representative, and Julie Jacobs. Can you hear me all right? No. Is the sound working? It's working up there. Yours is working.
Yes. There you go.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Hopefully you'll be able to hear me. All right, the first item on the agenda is a public hearing for McGee Living Trust two-lot subdivision, tax map 146-15, case 2024-04. This is the formal submission and public hearing. We have somebody representing the applicant.
Hello, I'm Tyler Young with Norway Plains. I'm a land surveyor that is stamping this plan. So as we discussed in the last workshop meeting and at the TRC, we are proposing a 12-acre subdivision, splitting 81 acres down into a 12-acre lot and a 69 remaining acre lot. We've requested several waivers, including a full survey of the property, seeing as how both remaining lots far exceed any of the minimum expectations or any settings for set by the planning board. The lot that we propose, the 12-acre lot, is divided about 2/3 of the way down by Harvey Brook, which is a prime wetland. We are not proposing any structures or development in the back parcel. I'm going to refer to the 12-acre lot as the front area, where there's a building site that is more than suitable by itself, that is over 2 acres, and then the remaining land back behind there, which is about 8 acres or more of forest land. From the last workshop meeting, we have decided to add some language on there in terms of accessing the back land of the subdivided lot. There is an existing grandfathered crossing that is more or less a skidder bridge that has been in use for over 100 years on the remaining parcel. Up in the upper left-hand corner, we've added some language up there since the last meeting that says that this crossing is for forestry purposes only. And we hope that meets a little bit more of a definition of what we were discussing earlier. In the adjusted packet, I also threw in an 8.5 by 11 sheet that shows topography on the front area. That topography is pretty well cluttered with a lot of text and other things on the plan itself. I wanted to remove all of that text and show what the contours are actually looking like on the property where a single-family residence is being proposed to be built. Now, the development site with the 100-foot setback from the prime wetlands is about 12 to 14 feet above the water surface of Harvey Brook, which I only just got this planning director review. I would have happily added on some more information regarding the FEMA flood area, but I only just got this about 15 minutes ago. So if I got it a day ahead of time, I would have happily added that to the plan with the other revisions that I had.
Sorry I didn't get it sooner.
That's all right.
We can add that at the, if the application is approved at that time.
Unfortunately, I don't know off the top of my head what the actual FEMA flood area is. I imagine it's a Zone A, which is an undefined flood zone. They say that there's a flood zone present, and we could try to scale it off of the larger maps produced back in 2013, I believe, for the town of Wolfeboro. But without doing a heck of a lot of extra surveying, that's about the best I could do, as long as the planning board's okay with that, is scaling it off of the larger maps. Now, it being 12 to 14 feet above the water surface, I could say with a good amount of confidence that any sort of structure within that 100-foot setback of the prime wetlands is going to be well above any sort of flood zone. I would hope so. If it floods 14 feet, there's going to be a lot more problems around town. But I will add what I can for available public information for that. Happy to take any other questions that we have at this time.
Any questions from the board?
You end up saying that the easement is for forestry only, and you say there will be no residential purposes back there. Is that, in fact, something which is really true, or is that something that might be changed in the future?
With the current regulations that the town has in place, there is no possibility of future development in the back of that parcel. If the regulations change in the future, I can't say to whether or not what's going to happen in the future. But as of right now, as the laws are and the rules are in place, there is no possibility of building a structure in the area that I have proposed and building a secondary structure back behind it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Looking at the topo map, I see the contour lines, but most of them are not identified.
The major contours are identified in 10-foot increments. I didn't want to add a whole lot of extra text for this little thing that I produced just to show where the lines actually are. So the darker lines are the 10-foot index contours. Those ones are labeled on the outside of the property leading into it.
Okay, can you justify the waivers that you've requested?
Absolutely. If you want to go through them one by one, I'd be happy to do that.
Yes, if you could, please.
Yes. So the waivers requested, including a waiver to section 174-7, subparagraph B, section 4, Part G and H, that is a waiver for the full survey location of property lines for the remaining land. The remaining land is over 69 acres. It was surveyed by an unrecorded survey by Stephen Boomer back in the 1960s, so we do know approximately where those lines are. They are well defined with both barbed wire fence and stone wall. We're trying to save a little bit of money by only dealing with the section that we are in development there. And the remaining land is far exceeding any sort of minimum standards that the town has set forth. The next waiver requested is existing and proposed topographic contours on the remaining land. As you can see, the main plan is really just centered around that 12-acre parcel that we are trying to identify there. Since we're not doing a full survey of the lot, we are saying we don't want to have to show contours and existing features on the remaining lot. In the full area parcel up in the upper left-hand corner, there is existing features shown as the existing house structure, as well as the well and the septic should be on there as well. And that is shown as a tiny little blip up in the upper left-hand corner so for the remaining land. The next one is also a waiver requesting for soil mapping, types and slopes, and boundaries of wetlands on remaining land. It's very important to know that we have had a professional wetland scientist, Dan Coons, has gone out there and delineated the wetlands around the area of proposed development. That is how we were able to set forth the exact boundaries of the 100-foot prime wetland setback and the 30-foot poorly drained soils wetland setback. We wanted to not have Dan Coons walk around that 80-acre lot putting up flags every so often in areas that there's not going to be any development proposed at this time.
Oh, okay, and you notice that in the planner review that they suggested that water supply, you'd be able to show the well, and that would probably add that as a condition.
Showing the well for the proposed lot?
Yes.
That usually comes at the same time as when...
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is that, yeah, right.
Yeah, that will all come with time in terms of when we actually get a septic design approved.
Okay,
by the state.
and the stormwater regulations, I think I brought this up to you last time, but what she's saying is if there's a disturbance for driveway in the house or greater than 10,000 square feet, then a stormwater management plan would be required. So
I just want to confirm there's a little bit of a typo right there. It
Yes,
says 1,000 square feet. I just want to confirm that it is 10,000 square
Yes.
feet.
It is 10,000.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
I have not discussed with my client exactly what they propose in terms of putting in a long driveway or putting up a 10,000 square foot house, I'm going to say that it's most likely, pretty unlikely that that is the case here.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. And if it is a greater disturbance than that, I'm sure that it could be seen again in the future.
We just want to make sure you're aware of it.
Yep.
Yeah, and that it would probably be a condition.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I'll make a motion that, based on the testimony, as far as the waivers are concerned, I think the applicant has justified the need for these waivers. So I'll make a motion to approve the following waivers: 174-7, B, 4, G, and H. Next one, 174-7D, 4. And the third one is 174-7D6. And granting those waivers on the basis of the testimony that the applicant has just presented.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
I have a question. Am I voting on this? I was not here for the first meeting.
Yes, the first meeting was non-binding, informal. This is the first formal session.
Aye.
Aye? Okay.
Aye.
I believe that's unanimous. Any opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you. With that, I propose that the application is complete. I'll make a motion to accept the application as complete.
And I'll second it.
All in favor?
Well, I have a point of discussion here. I have problems with the contours on the building, for the area that's going to be built upon. I'll say it's impossible to identify what these mean, and it's on a sheet of paper. It's got no surveyor's seal. It's not on the survey plan.
That's not supposed to be official submission. It's supposed to aid in viewing everything without any of the text on there. It is actually part of the plan, even though it doesn't have my surveying stamp on it.
Okay, but then your plan fails to meet the requirements of the subdivision regulations, because that requires that contours be shown at 2-foot intervals on the most important part of this lot.
And
You
that
don't
is shown
show-
in 2-foot intervals. That is 2-foot
You
intervals as
just told
shown
me
there.
this thing doesn't exist, basically. Your plan is here. It doesn't show it. It doesn't show it. It's blocked out by text. And it doesn't say in the subdivision regulations that just because it's inconvenient or there's text there, that you don't have to show the contours. And you can't read the contours on this thing anyway. They're not identified.
Would the board like me to produce a third sheet with no text on it that only shows contours?
Well, so I see two sheets. One, the first I would agree with you. The second sheet, I see lots of contours with numbers on them.
As do I.
Yeah.
But none of those sheets show the area to be built upon.
Yeah, they do. S2.
Well, if you compare the two, is this an updated revision? It does not, it shows type over where these lines appear over here, although it does seem to be more complete than what we got in our packet. Maybe I'm,
So S2 was in my packet, and I clearly see, 600, 590, and on the other side, a whole string of dimensions going up the hill.
And the one I received, Vaughn, shows the same. I see the 2-foot, 1-foot increments, actually.
They are 2-foot
No, they're
increments.
two.
2
Yeah.
foot?
Yeah, the solid line topo is your 10-foot intervals. The dotted lines are 2 feet in between. So that's all you gotta do is just count.
Yeah, so the 10-foot intervals are not, they're also dotted, they're dashed, they're just thicker.
And it also shows the setback area, which defines where you can build.
Correct. And the
Yep.
text that's actually overlapping a good amount of that is a boundary marker. I took it upon myself to think that defining the boundaries of the property was much more significant than showing each contour. And also, the Registry of Deeds doesn't allow contour lines to be recorded anyway. That's why we produce Sheet 1 and Sheet 2. Sheet 1 is the one that's going to be recorded at the registry. Sheet 2 is the subsequent sheet that meets all of the planning board criteria. That sheet does not get recorded. That will not, it is not allowed by Lisa Scott up at Carroll County for me to record Sheet 2. It is only here just for planning board approval.
I don't believe the subdivision regulations afford you the opportunity to decide what you're going to include and not include.
Lisa Scott at the Carroll County Registry of Deeds makes that decision, and
I'm
I'm just
not
trying.
talking about what's recorded. I know what's recorded. I'm talking about the plan you submitted, which has these lines that kind of disappear. And then you gave us this thing, which shows more complete lines, but they don't appear on this sheet.
Well, I apologize. I was trying to be helpful in showing what the contours were doing on the property.
Well, what would be helpful is if you followed the regulations.
So,
I would love to know how to do that without showing all the text that's required.
no, I think perhaps the way to solve that issue is perhaps a third sheet with an inset or an enlargement of that area with greater detail.
Would it be required that my surveyor stamp is on it without showing any boundary lines? Because that's what would be required, is I remove all the text defining the boundaries and still put my stamp on it.
Well, if it's at a larger scale, you could see everything. You know, you could see the boundary information and the topo.
I
It's
wouldn't be
just
able to
this-
show the boundary information of the rear of the lot. That's the problem, of the back parcel beyond the brook.
Well, I think we're most concerned with the front of the lot.
Yes, that's this part that's going to be built upon.
The developable area.
But I can see this. I don't know. It is
Yeah.
small.
Yeah,
But
but
I
I
can
think
see
the
it.
concern is the area between Harvey Brook and the road. So while it would be helpful to have that, I think the discussion we're having now is whether or not what has been submitted complies with the regulation.
Right. And we could discuss in the future if we require 1 inch equals 20-foot survey shown. This is 80-foot, so that we can see the detail area. But I don't think that's in the regulation.
I think it's 1 inch equals 100 feet, maybe, in the
Well, that's even
regulations.
smaller than this, Roger.
1 inch equals 80 feet is what is shown on there.
Is what's on
Yeah.
here. But I think part of the problem here is, well, first of all, we get a plan. We get a plan this size, but here you've got this long, skinny lot, and the area that really is being developed is just a small portion up here. And because of what you need to include in this, it makes it very small and hard to decipher. And if this area were blown up, then you could get your contour lines and your print and everything else on it.
I'd be happy to show us a third sheet as a condition of approval that shows contour lines as a blow-up with the Norway Plains logo with no property lines, and I will still put my stamp on it.
Would you also address the point in the planner review that it showed 20,000 square feet of non-wetland area?
I need to add text on there that shows 20,000 square feet. I could tell you that the area inside of all of the setbacks, including the 100-foot prime wetland setback, is just about 64,000 square feet, if I remember that off the top of my head.
That would be non-wetland area sufficient size to accommodate all housing and required utilities. It's just what it calls for. And if
No,
you're
that's-
doing it,
That's correct. I'm not entirely sure if that says that it needs to be contiguous.
I believe it does. I don't have that.
If it says if it doesn't have any language on it being contiguous, then we have well above that with the area in the back. But in the area in the front, which is all that I'm dealing with right now, it would be well over 20,000 square feet. If that needs to be added to the plan, I'd be happy to do it.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for then.
Yep.
Roger, would you be happy to accept the application as complete if that additional information was included as a condition of approval?
Yes, I would. Well, yeah. I'd probably prefer to see it come back before us one last time, but I'm prepared to proceed with the application as complete.
Well, so the planner recommendation is that that is a contingency. You know, they have to come in, you know, for
Yeah.
signatures. So that is a recommendation for approval with these conditions.
Yeah, I would say based on the discussion tonight and your explanation that I'd be fine with that.
Thank you. So there's been a motion made and seconded to accept the application as complete. Any more discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Now open the public hearing. Would anybody like to speak to this application? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and have discussion amongst the board. So in addition to the discussion we've had already, there are a number of planner recommendations. I'll read them off for the public's benefit. That the following plans as amended on this date of approval are incorporated into the approval, and the plans that we've discussed, the subdivision plan as dated August 2024 by Norway Lanes. The discussion about subdivision regulation 174.9.2.B1, that 20,000 square feet of non-wetland area of sufficient size to there is adequate accommodation for all housing and utilities provided, and this should be shown on the subdivision plan. The stormwater regulation 173.21A1, as Kathy described earlier. The FEMA flood hazard zone should be identified prior to a building permit being issued. The final drawing shall be submitted to the planning office for review prior to recording. The final approved and reviewed subdivision plan shall be recorded by Carroll County Registry of Deeds per RSA 676-3, Roman numeral 3, within 6 months of the approval date. Failure to comply with this requirement shall render the subdivision approval null and void. The applicant shall be responsible for payment of all recording fees for notice of decision. All documentation submitted in the application package by the applicant and any requirements imposed by other agencies that are part of this approval, unless otherwise updated, revised, clarified in some manner, or superseded in full or part. In the case of conflicting information between documents, the most recent documentation and this notice herein shall generally be determining. Lastly, appeals language pursuant to RSA 677:15, any aggrieved party may appeal this decision to the Carroll County Superior Court within 30 days of the board vote. And then additionally, the discussion that we just had about having an additional drawing done with it as an inset as a condition of approval, with the greater scale showing the contour lines and the buildable area.
I have one question. Back in at least some time ago, did we normally require that a condition that monuments be set?
Monumentation for all proposed corners are shown on that plan as large circles, also with the text next to them of PMTBS, proposed monument to be set. All of the monument gets set before recording, before the final Mylar is produced. I need to show any sort of monumentation that's on the ground before it heads up to planning board signature approval and then subsequently up to the Carroll County Registry of
Okay,
Deeds.
so that will all be done prior to it being recorded?
Yes.
Okay,
Roger, would you like to have that as part of condition of approval?
sure.
Any further discussion amongst the board?
So I just wonder about this access easement. It is shown on the scale 1 inch equals 300-foot plan as a spot on the brook, I think, that is on the remainder lot. There's no language here. I don't know if that's part of this approval or if that's just some separate easement that is recorded somewhere.
That was part of the discussion in the workshop. After discussion with my client, it was decided to add the existing tote road that is already there and crosses an existing crossing of the prime wetland. That area up in the 1 in 300 scale, the upper left-hand corner, we also added language saying that access easement to access the rear of the property is for forestry use only. Any subsequent use or change of use needs to come back to the planning board for approval. Most likely it needs to get a zoning amendment if zoning doesn't change as it is right now. Like I said, the darker line is the existing tote road. There is a lighter line as it continues on to the edge of the proposed property, and that lighter line is a possible location for the easement. There was discussion about needing to define that easement, and that was our attempt to do so.
So it looks like it's at the tip of the wetlands just behind the house that's existing.
It's an existing bridge crossing, yes.
Yeah.
It's already in place, it's grandfathered in. There would be no need for any sort of wetlands crossing permits to be able to use it. It's already in place.
So I would just be concerned if I were one of these property owners that was recorded somewhere. As an easement.
When the property is conveyed out, it would be added on there because it is part of the plan. It would be part of the conditions. Yeah.
Any other comments from the board?
I'll make a motion to approve this application with the conditions just read and accepted by the board.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Do we have need some findings of fact to go with that?
Yes. Would anybody like to propose the findings of fact?
That this subdivision meets the existing requirements on our subdivision regulations. Period.
All right. I think that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is preliminary design review consultation for the Wolfeboro Bible Church, site plan review and parking lot expansion, 533 Center Street, tax map 148-15.
How you doing?
I'd like to introduce the project or the discussion. Yeah, it's going to be hard to hear both of you if you don't speak in the mic. Thank you. All right.
Can you speak more clearly? You can hold it in your hand if you want.
You can point that mic up towards you a little bit. There you go. I might need to pull it closer to you.
No.
Is it on?
I don't know if it's working even.
Was?
Is the switch on?
Yeah.
It may be dead.
It was on for,
No, nothing.
no, that won't help the TV audience.
Fair.
Saving a bunch of dead batteries, are we? It's the third one.
Right?
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
All right, if you could introduce yourselves again, please.
My name is Paul Buckley.
And Walter Dorsey.
Thank you.
Again, we represent the Wolfeboro Bible Church here. And our proposal is to expand our part of our existing parking lot to the east, adding 34 parking spaces. And we've had considerable discussion with Shauna Saunders on this project.
Yes?
Yeah.
And what is the current state of the parking lot?
The current parking lot is asphalted and curbed. And the existing, where we're going to expand, is a wooded area.
So you're not changing the existing one, we're just adding on to it, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
And this meets the coverage requirements. It seems to me it does, but,
It does, as far as square footage, yes, it does.
okay.
Okay, the only question Shauna had was on the water runoff. Now, we do have, I believe you probably have a letter from Norway surveyors that say it does cover all the requirements. You know, it falls in with everything.
And we were told that from Norway that it does, the existing stormwater retention basin is more than adequate to cover any potential runoff from the new parking spaces.
And where is the existing basin?
It's in the back of the church, which is connected. We have catch basins and in the existing parking lot, and in the plan, there's the addition of one more catch basin to connect up to the existing stormwater system, and all the runoff from the proposed 34 spaces would then be directed to the catch basin and then to that stormwater detention basin.
And where's the catch basement on the new?
It is,
Oh, I see it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's shown at the south edge of the parking lot.
Yep, I got it.
the dotted line. And as I say, that's a new line that's going to be attached to the existing with the detail, with the detail of the catch basin over on the other side of the drawing.
Does that connect to, I went up there today and the pastor showed me around and it was really very helpful and gave me a much better idea of what was being talked about. But there's riprap that comes down on both sides of the church. Now, does that all drain into the retention?
Yes.
And then this will connect to that?
Well, the riprap is a separate situation. This is all underground piping that goes to the same retention area.
Okay, so it is piping.
Yes, it's 12, yeah. It's stated, I believe it's 12-inch.
Yeah, 12-inch. Yep.
Yeah, the problem with this plan is it doesn't show where it goes. It just sort of shows it ending.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, as soon as we were asked that question, I realized that, yes. But, yeah, we do have, I think you saw the retention.
Oh, yeah, it was bone dry.
And it is always, yeah. So Roger did see that retention area today.
I'd suggest that that retention pond and a larger scale or a larger view of what is going to be done is going to be useful for us, because just say that there's one over there doesn't seem to
I
me fulfill the requirements.
understand
And
that.
it shouldn't be that hard to do, but it should be part of the plan.
Yeah, I think to pick up on that, the parking lot doesn't seem to be anchored on the lot. There's one dimension off what I think is the front of the church, but it doesn't say it's the church. And it would be helpful if we had,
I don't know if you have it, but there is a marking right here that, right in,
that
there's a survey marking there that does show.
but it doesn't show what setbacks there are from any of the boundaries. And is the stone wall the boundary? Or is that is it further over? I know it's a large lot.
No, I mean, are you saying this right here?
No, it's the one on the left-hand side of the plan.
Oh, okay, that would be the boundary on the left-hand side.
Okay.
Again, the letter from Norway states it falls, it covers, all the setbacks are in line. There's no need for any kind of variation in setbacks.
No, but the only thing is that the parking lot itself is not anchored on the property. It's not, there's nothing that tells you where it is.
What Roger's suggesting is
In
there
other
should be
words,
something on the,
the boundary lines are not there. So in other words,
I-
if the map is expanded so you can see the boundary lines and also the building and the catch basin, which seems to be this, below it, that would be helpful.
So what you'd be looking for is a smaller scale, but with all the with the catch, with the tiebacks and the retention pond on it.
Yeah, I mean, there should be a site plan that was prepared when the church was approved.
There is.
yeah, something that shows the full site.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just so
I've seen it.
we know where it is.
Yeah.
Because in my last meeting with Shauna last week, I think Terry Tavares actually pulled out the existing plans that showed the catch basin and all the storm lines and the tie-ins. So that was available, I think, actually in the town. So you would need that in addition to this plan.
Yeah, so just so we have some idea. I mean, I went out and looked at it, but I'm not going to be recorded in the registry of deeds or go in the file drawer.
Yeah. And I'm sorry for not having it with us, but the email from Shauna to Norway said that she believed you, with the plan you have now and the letter, it was going to be sufficient for your review, at least your preliminary review.
Yeah, and certainly it's sufficient for the preliminary review, and that's
Yeah.
one of our goals here is to get advice such as you're receiving now so that when you come for the formal review, it'll go smoothly and there won't be any hiccups.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and she mentioned the calculations that show that the basin there is more than sufficient to handle.
Yeah. I mean, again, if that's going to be part of the October 22nd review, we're going to try for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at that point, we would be represented by Norway that would have the calcs. And at that time, we'll also make sure we have the full site plan.
And also, it's our understanding that should this move forward, that your intent is to clear and stabilize the land this fall in preparation for doing the paving in the spring, I suppose. Is that right?
Go ahead, Walter.
Yes, in my conversations with Shauna, it was kind of left that we would be able to go ahead and do the clearing of the trees and the preliminary grading, and also in the hopes of putting down a gravel base so that it could be utilized this winter for parking, because right now people are ending up parking out onto 28. And so, and not, obviously not putting down any paving or anything else, so that in the wintertime that they could plow the current spaces, the current asphalt, and then plow off the snow in the gravel subbase, so that it could be utilized this winter. And that's what we're hoping to accomplish. And then, obviously, in the coming spring or, early summer of next year, then go through and get the actual paving and the curbing and the last phase of it done. So that at least this winter that people would have someplace to park other than out on Route 28.
And is it in your intent to do any of the catch basins or sewage, storm sewer? Drainage. Are there any of the drainage?
I guess the best approach would be to possibly get in the catch basin and the 12-inch pipe that connects to the existing system, just so that it would have the entire winter to settle in, and you wouldn't have to then dig it up again in the spring and then wait for that to settle so that you wouldn't have a dip in the pavement, et cetera.
All right.
So that was kind of the intent, but not to do any paving until the spring.
All right, we just want to make sure we understand what your intent are.
Yes, that was our intent.
The finished crushed gravel on top would be left off the next year. So it would still be an impervious surface.
So that would all happen after the October 22nd hearing?
The clearing, we would like to have the clearing and start the excavation prior to,
Prior to October 22nd?
or prior to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, again, our understanding, talking to Shauna, that we could possibly have the agreement here to allow us to be able to clear the trees and do the excavation.
I'm not sure, and they haven't even been to TRC yet, and we really haven't seen the whole plan. I just would caution people on that aspect.
Yeah, I'd be concerned about that as well. What is the reason for delaying the hearing to October 22nd as opposed to having it sooner?
We thought that was as soon as we could get in.
What's the meeting in October, the first meeting, October?
First meeting in October is October 1st.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I thought you were going to come to the technical review committee on next Tuesday, or next Wednesday,
Yeah, and in fact, there is no meeting October 22nd. We have meetings in October on the 1st and the 15th.
15th.
Yeah, because because the big push, all of a sudden, when we thought we could just proceed without the planning, meeting
Yes.
before the planning board, that Shauna had indicated, well, the first meeting was going to be on October 22nd. And our concern was the fact that that's going to basically delay everything and push it back probably until the following spring.
So I guess my question to you is, would you be prepared to have a hearing on October 1st? And would that be too late for you to?
No.
Too late?
No, I don't think it.
I have a question.
Okay, again, excuse me. I'm just sorry for the mix-up on the dates, but I'm just going by what an email from Shauna giving us those dates. That's what.
No, I appreciate that. And
I just.
everybody's got a lot on their
make sure
plate.
I'm
People
covered.
make mistakes. We're trying to clear that up now. And
Exactly. So October 1st, you would want Norway here with the calculations for the runoff, the full site plan, and the setbacks.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, but you need to come to the technical review committee first.
Before.
Okay, that's new to us
And
right
that's
now.
Tuesday, right, Randy?
And I believe it's on Wednesdays, is it not?
Wednesday, sorry.
Doug, I have a question.
Yes, Julie.
Is this holding up them cutting the trees?
That's what I'm trying to
excuse me.
find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, excuse me.
separate-
I
two separate-
I thought it'd be a good idea if I just sat in tonight. I'm Randy Tatro, Norway Plains Associates. That's names being used quite a bit here. And hopefully I can clear up what the story was with this one. Originally, we were contacted by the church to do the parking lot design. When we started that, we were planning on going for full site review, and we were told that per the new statute, that wasn't needed. And that's one of the reasons you see the plan you see, because it's just a construction plan. It's not a formal site plan that has all the information that you've been asking these people for. an overall that shows where it is on the site. We have all that information, okay, because we did the survey for the subdivision for the church, remember, Roger? And so what happened in the midst of all that is the current acting planner was trying to help these guys out because of the construction schedule, and said, if you can get to the board and explain the situation to them, then, and let them know that you're going to be going to full site review, that you'll be allowed to proceed based on what had happened in the past. Now, that's up to you guys, but that was what I was told. I saw the emails as well. So I thought that it might be a good idea if I sit here in case you guys have any questions in regards to that. But as Kathy said, formal site review right now, I got to go to the TRC tomorrow with 2 other items that we had a preliminary on. And based on your new procedure where you have to come to the planning board before you can even do that, that's why these gentlemen are here tonight. So the quickest that you could do something like that would be to submit by the September 10th deadline, right, application deadline for the first meeting in October.
Right.
Which we can do because we have most of the information. It's just that they wanted to be able to start, they'd already planned on starting, and that's kind of putting the cart before the horse. But because of the information that was provided, the planner felt that that was, a reasonable thing for them. So does that kind of explain things?
I mean, we have to have a public hearing on
Yeah,
this.
yeah. So we submit
Okay,
on the
so
10th, we'd have to notify abutters and do all that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we can tell someone they can go ahead with a project that hasn't been approved, although we completely understand the situation and think it's very unfortunate it happened to them. I understand that you asked, and you got a reading of the statutes that basically said the opposite of what it says.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're not going to get into my opinion on what the statute says, because that's meaningless. But that said, I wasn't the one that decided that. That was what was. So tonight could serve 2 purposes. One, that if that's how the board feels, they can tell these gentlemen that. And number 2, we just have to pull together, a more comprehensive set of plans to be able to submit, and which would mean that we would have to be on the TRC tomorrow, which I don't believe we are. Okay?
Or next Wednesday.
Or next
Wednesday.
Yeah, so the 4th. Well, we'd have to submit on the 10th.
That's okay. You could go ahead and you could do that.
If you can, if you could waive the day, then we could do it next Wednesday. Yeah. Are we clear on that?
Yeah, we'd like to do anything we can to accommodate you under the circumstances.
Yeah, so like I say, we have the information. Wasn't planning on doing a full submittal this quickly, but I think we can pull that part off. Again, didn't mean to step up and,
and I don't think any of this would hold you up, for example, from clearing the trees.
Well,
I'll let you guys talk about it.
well, I'm not.
Well, Doug, that's kind of the comment I was going to have regarding the clearing. Anybody can come in for an intent to cut permit to clear some trees out. Granted, they'd be doing it at their own risk. If something changed in the plan, then you'd be losing your trees that are in the front of the church here between there and Route 28. But they can come in and get an intent to cut permit and cut the trees ahead of time. That doesn't need to come before us for that part of it. It would give them a little bit of a head start. While we saw the rest of it coming in, it sounds like the time frame now is working to their advantage. They'd be able to get in for that early October meeting, which would then allow them to continue on with the construction to get the gravels all in this fall and everything. So I just want to point that out that, we see that at the Board of Selectmen. We see the intent to cuts come into our meetings, every meeting we have, and they're issued, routinely throughout the whole town, So
that should, if you go coordinate that with the Board of Selectmen, that should give you also a head start on what you want to do without having to wait for an approval from the planning board.
And on October 1st, we could get the approval if everything is in line?
Yes, that's right.
Based on any
And what
issues from the public that might come up.
Yes, assuming that everything goes smoothly and there are no objections, then you should be able to get your approval on October 1st.
Yeah.
Again, we're sorry for the confusion, but where we started the project, we understood on that RSA 674-76, or that a lot of this was not going to be required. So we wanted to make sure we brought it up to the town's attention to make sure we were following the line. So there seems to be some confusion on that part.
I mean, we're not suggesting you did anything wrong.
Yeah.
And I think what Randy needs to do is prepare a site review that addresses height of structures, yard size, lot area, setbacks, open space, and building coverage requirements, which would include stormwater runoff.
Now, the only question I had, you were mentioning a intent to cut. How does that come into play? I'm kind of confused as to what we have to do with that. Or is that the timber person that comes in to clear the land? Would he be the one that would come up and get that?
Typically, they're the ones that would get that for you. You could have whoever if you've already got somebody lined up, they come in, get the intent to cut, because they work with them in all sorts of different lots in town.
Yeah.
Get it filled out. They'll get on our agenda and be heard and stuff. And it's a pretty straightforward process. I think if you come in, I believe the intent to cuts go in through the assessing department, don't they, down to Linda? Does she? I think so. But if you come in the town hall anyway, they'll direct you to where you get that application, and or your logger will know who to speak to anyway.
All right, so once that person comes in and fills out the required paperwork and gets that, can that person then go through and start cutting, or is there you can?
No, so
Well, they need
the intent once you fill out the intent to cut application, it would go before the Board of Selectmen, who meet every other Wednesday, is that right? And then they would approve it or disapprove it during their meeting.
Okay.
And once it's done, and once it's finished at the Board of Selectmen meeting, then you have clearance to proceed.
Okay, so that's something I can notify the contractor and have whoever he's lined up to remove the trees that have to be removed, and he would get the permit and.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay,
One thing I'm concerned about, and it probably is not an issue, and I may be wrong, but if we have a public hearing on this particular thing for the beginning of October, it needs to be warned appropriately in newspapers so that it is a legal hearing. And so therefore, the timing, I don't know what the timing really is.
Well, that's what we were just discussing, the September 10th, the September
we need to
10th
get
date
that done
deadline.
by that time.
Yeah.
Right, and Randy understands that aspect of it.
All right. And then as far as the assessment, we're paying for the trees that come down. There's no value in those trees. So there's no taxes. But, okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I don't think that's right.
The next item on the agenda is a public meeting presentation for the dwelling unit definition. So some of us on the planning board have been reviewing some of the current and proposed definitions for dwelling unit. I'll read it out for the public's benefit, especially those who are watching on TV. The current Wolfeboro Ordinance 175-175 defines a dwelling unit as one or more rooms arranged, designed, or used for residential purposes for one household and containing independent sanitary and cooking facilities. The presence of cooking and sanitary facilities conclusively establishes the intent to use for residential purposes. Quote, dwelling unit, unquote, is further defined as follows. A, dwelling, comma, multi-unit, a building and accessories thereto principally used, designed, or adapted with 3 or more dwelling units, each of which has separate living quarters. B, dwelling unit, comma, duplex, a building and accessories thereto principally used, designed, or adapted with 2 dwelling units of similar proportions, the living quarters for each of which are completely separate. A single-family dwelling unit with an accessory dwelling unit is not a duplex dwelling unit. C, dwelling, comma, single family, a building and accessories thereto principally used, designed, or adapted as a single dwelling unit. The addition of an accessory dwelling unit to a single dwelling unit does not change the status of the single dwelling unit to a duplex dwelling. And the proposed definitions are for dwelling unit, a building or portion thereof providing complete independent living facilities for one or more persons, including permanent provisions for living, sleeping, eating, cooking, and sanitation. The use shall not be deemed to include such transient occupancies as hotels, motels, boarding houses, inns, bed and breakfast. It should read bed and breakfast, but it reads bread and breakfast, so we'll have to correct that. Or short-term rentals. And then the next definition proposed is for dwelling, a building or portion thereof containing one or more dwelling units. A single-family dwelling would be a building consisting of a single dwelling unit. The addition of an accessory dwelling unit to a single-family dwelling does not change the status of the single-family dwelling to a duplex dwelling. The next is duplex dwelling, a building consisting of two dwelling units. A single-family dwelling unit with an accessory dwelling unit is not a duplex dwelling unit. And lastly, multifamily dwelling, a building consisting of three or more dwelling units. Any discussion amongst the board?
I would just like to suggest that a number of times the accessory dwelling unit has been discussed, and that is a well-defined unit in other regulations. In other words, this is not something which is, we're just throwing out there. The accessory dwelling unit tends to be smaller than the main dwelling unit.
And further to your comments, Peter, in the Wolfeboro regulations, there are additional regulations governing the accessory dwelling units for things such as which way the door faces, so that it does not appear to be a separate unit.
What I'm trying to emphasize is that there are other regulations for that kind of dwelling. It's not just we're throwing something out and it's not there.
Yes, thank you.
I think this is finally it.
Yeah, I like the simplification. It's 1, 2, 3 or more. It's very simple. And they don't have to look like each other. You know, it's just how many units are there. You don't have to have the ink blot theory, you know, where it looks like a duplicate. There's no benefit to that. In fact, there's a design flaw in a lot of those. It's not very interesting.
That was done was to focus on the structure rather than who's living in it. So we've said that it's for one or more persons rather than for one household. So we avoid the issue of what is considered a household.
Well, we still have it multifamily, but is there any other way to put that? Multi-unit?
Yes, perhaps there is. Yes, and that might be a good suggestion, Julie, to instead of multifamily, it could be multi-unit.
Because there's single family, could be, you know, just, you're trying to get rid of all of that, maybe just kind of edit some more.
But throughout, multifamily dwellings are referred to as multifamily dwellings throughout the zoning ordinance.
Yes.
That was the
Roger's
issue.
point is taken in
That's
that
the issue.
Right.
it would
That was from
take a
last
lot
time.
of changes elsewhere in the regulations to accommodate that. I
Right,
think it's a
forgot
good
about that,
point,
Roger.
Yeah.
but I don't know that it's something we could address in these definitions. Any other comments?
Simple.
If not, then I think we can,
Well, we wanted to open this to the public and get any comments.
sure, we'd be happy to open this to public comment if anybody would like to speak to it. No? All right. Close the public hearing, and then this would, if I'm not mistaken, move on to a proper public meeting.
Yep.
All right.
Fine.
Do that some date in the near future. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Conservation Subdivision, Article 14.
How
which we've
about
been going over.
24?
I'm sorry, Roger?
How about 24?
I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. 24. I miscounted. Thank you for the correction. 24, XXIV. I'm certainly not going to read the whole thing again. We've gone over this in great detail over the past several meetings. Would anybody on the board like to make any further comments about it at this time?
Now,
If
is this
not-
available to the public so that everybody can read
yes.
it online and?
It's on the website, isn't it?
Yes, I believe it was posted to the planning board website some time
Okay.
ago.
Just
Right.
wanted to make sure.
Yep, thank you, Devon. We'll open up the public hearing. Would anybody from the public like to speak to it?
Ken Perry.
You can
I
turn
wasn't
that
here, Ken Perry. I wasn't here before. Could you briefly, in a sentence or two, share how this proposal differs from what we've had for decades?
I don't have anything prepared to speak to that.
There are a couple of main points
Yeah.
that the reason it was rewritten, I guess.
I would take a stab at part of it. One of the things we did was, under the current ordinance, conservation subdivisions were mandatory. We decided to make it optional. I think if you look at, one of our goals was to make people come in and actually use the conservation subdivision. I mean, the version of this type of development has been around since the 70s, and it's been very rarely used. We were hoping that it would encourage people to use it more often. I think there is maybe some benefit in terms of the number of units you can include. The deduction for roads under this ordinance is not as large as under the current ordinance. We made some changes that, for example, you don't get a benefit for having public open space, because that really just isn't feasible or used. We did make it so that if you did inclusionary zoning, you got a density bonus, and if you increased the open space, required open space, by more than, I think it's 50%, that's currently required, then you could get a density bonus, a slight density bonus for that.
I think that was in there before. It was just a lot more language.
The
I think
increase of
the density bonus for, I think it was lower income housing. I think we had some of that in there.
Oh, there's a
It was-
version of that that didn't quite match.
Yeah.
I think.
But
Some of the changes which were made were to make it easier to do the calculation if we're going to be doing this kind of thing. And I think that, the previous way was so obfuscated that it was hard to deal with. And I think that some of what we're doing here now is to make it so that, I want to do this, I do this, and can come up with a solution, or maybe decide not to do it. But it is a much easier process.
Yeah, that really was the intent of taking this on, was to just make sure that the ordinance was a little more understandable and people would think of it rather than saying, oh, I don't want to deal with that. But that's what we were really trying to do, because conservation subdivision is a saving of land, and that's what we feel is important. So,
Correct. If I remember correctly, decades ago, that came out of a charrette-like
right,
discussion.
yes.
And am I correct that the one on Browns Ridge Road is about the only one we have at this point?
I think that was before. Wasn't the Browns Ridge Road before that whole charrette process with Randall Arendt was the guy who
I don't remember,
came,
but
yeah.
is
But
there
there was a provision. It was the open space preservation option back in the 70s.
Right. And that's how the Browns Ridge Road development was done?
That I don't.
That's my assumption.
Yeah.
Because,
But that
I think when you look
predated the charrette that led to this.
right,
Yeah.
could have been, but I mean, that development has lots that are like half acre, and then lots of common space.
Right.
So there's no limit to the size of the lots. You have to at least reserve 50% of the land left after deducting poorly drained, steep slopes.
Right.
And 5% right-of-way.
Okay.
So you can make the lots 0. It could be that it's condominiumized. I mean, that's not, but it's still,
Okay.
the number of units
Right.
is dictated by the size of the land.
Right, so the overall density would remain
the
the same.
same. Right.
It's just the ability to concentrate it to make it more efficient
Right.
for lots of reasons. Thank you.
Would anybody else from the public like to speak? All right, we'll close the public hearing. And as with the the dwelling unit definition, this will go on then to a formal public meeting. All right, the next item is discussion about food trucks.
Yes, I asked for this to be on because back several weeks ago, some people were concerned about the food trucks. And so during that time, I said, I thought the planning board needed to discuss that. Right now, it's not a permitted use in the C1 or anywhere. It can't be an accessory use. It needs to be added sort of as a permitted use if anyone has any interest in adding this. I mean, if it was in the C1, we could look at it through a site plan approval. Parking would be an issue. Also, smell the placement on the site and the time of operation. But anyway, I just thought it was worth us discussing so that we could figure out if there was anything we could do about it or not.
Further to Kathy's comments, in our definitions, section 175-175 of the Wolfeboro zoning ordinance, it defines vending carts or vehicles as any mobile portable device not associated with an approved business on the site that is designed, constructed, or used to sell prepared food or goods to the general public at a fixed location. The device is customarily moved to the site at the start of each business day and removed at the close of the business day. Also, the device does not require a building permit to be located at its location. For the purpose of the Wolfeboro Planning and Zoning Ordinance, vending carts or vehicles are prohibited. So strictly speaking, I would interpret that to say that food trucks are not permitted within Wolfeboro according to the ordinance.
I
do
think
have
in
a
the past, though, that there have been events that the selectmen have approved, whatever they call that, temporary permits for vendors like this to come to, let's say, Wolfeboro Winnipesaukee Night or whatever.
It's a temporary event permit. You can have food trucks as part of the temporary event.
And that's what we've had in the past.
Also, out at the Nick, every Thursday, there is what's the thing out at the Nick every Thursday?
The farmer's market.
Thank you.
Market,
They have food trucks.
Yes.
How did that happen?
And I don't know the answer to that.
That's a temporary event.
Do they have permits for temporary events like that for every single week on private property?
Yes.
Not dissing
I believe
them.
that's what they have.
But,
I believe when they come in for the farmer's market, it's for the whole season. They define the dates, the time they're going to be there, the location, obviously, and stuff like that. So it's a one-time temporary event permit dedicated to those dates and times.
So I understand that the Board of Selectmen may have granted a temporary event permit, and so I would question whether the Board of Selectmen have the authority or ability to waive a prohibition in the zoning ordinance.
good question.
When we see the temporary event permit, we don't get involved to the level to know who the vendors are that are coming in to set up there. That's not part of our purview there. So it's basically the event, the location, and the time. I don't know if that helps or not, but.
At this point, I'm just asking the question. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, but if they're not, if the food trucks on those permits are not listed, or the tents, or the music or whatever, how can, I'm really rolling over the rock here, how can that permit even be granted? Because you don't know what the event is.
You do have to spell out certain things on the application, because I file one every year for the Great Smith River Canoe and Kayak Race. The way that temporary events happen to come into existence was that many years ago, when Gordon Reed was the permit officer, he would not let the, I think it was the Legion, have their 4th of July carnival, because it was a zoning violation, and he basically did that because he wanted to create a problem. And the solution to that was that the temporary event ordinance was adopted so that you could get a temporary event and have something like a 4th of July carnival or a farmer's market at the Nick or a canoe race at Albee Beach in the town docks. So it's not something that is done under zoning. In the hawkers and peddlers license is done by the selectmen as well, and that's not under the zoning ordinance.
So presently, as I understand it, it seems like any food truck is here is with a special event permit.
Yes.
So therefore,
No,
there
I
has
think
been
so.
selectmen input onto that particular event and that particular way that things are going to be presented. Is that true?
I believe so, but
Yeah.
Okay,
Brad might be able to comment.
I don't believe where the food trucks have been over the last few years in town, that we've had temporary event permit applications come in for them, so that hasn't been
but
the
what
process.
I'm saying is the ones that have been approved, as in for special events, that you can have a food truck here, and that is part of the application, as in the farmer's market is basically a bunch of food trucks showing up, and they're given a permit for the entire season.
I said, we don't get overly involved as to who or what is going to be coming in for those vendors and stuff. Yeah, we understand the farmer's market's going to be, the vendors are going to be selling their products, there's going to be vegetables and meats and all sorts of stuff.
What I'm saying is that in the past, the approved food trucks have been approved by the Board of Selectmen for various permits that are issued.
I would say, yeah.
And would you say the ones that haven't come in for approval and have been functioning anyway should have come in for approval from the Board of Selectmen?
I don't know if I can really answer that or not, Vaughn, to tell you the truth, so.
To come in under the temporary event ordinance, you need to be a nonprofit.
Yeah.
True.
So my concern, Roger, is that even if they apply for a temporary event permit, does the Board of Selectmen have the authority to grant them the ability to operate if, in fact, food trucks are prohibited in Wolfeboro by the zoning ordinance?
I think if they do it as part of a approved temporary event, such as the Winnipesaukee Day, that then they have the right to come in and operate during that temporary event. It needs to be a nonprofit, and it needs to be a temporary outside event,
And why does it need to be a nonprofit?
because that's what the temporary event ordinance says. And I think partly it's so you don't have people, one of the reasons is so you don't have out-of-town people coming in and competing with the local businesses.
So the whole farmer's market is for profit.
No, it's run by a charitable organization.
Certainly the individual vendors at the farmer's
Yeah.
market are for profit,
Yeah.
but the farmer's market as a whole is a nonprofit.
Okay.
And
So it needs
the
to cover.
Winnipesaukee Day is a charity nonprofit, and they allow vehicles to come in and sell food.
Okay.
I see where you're going, Doug, because that just says that any zoning regulation can be broken at a whim, just because,
Well, I don't know that it can, but that's my concern.
well, it seems
yes.
to be that's what's going on.
Yeah, that's my concern. And I don't know what the legal answer is, and maybe it's something we have to consider with council.
It might be a smart question to ask, just what's the general food truck thought in New Hampshire?
Well, not just in New Hampshire, because other places in New Hampshire may have a different definition of vending cart than Wolfeboro does.
Right.
It really comes down to the last sentence in Wolfeboro's definition, which has nothing to do with the rest of the state. If there are no objections, I'd like to open this up to public comment.
Yeah, because, I mean, let me just say one thing. I mean, the things we were focusing on were trucks that were going to be placed on property, you know, for several days, not just temporary, so.
Well, but I guess that comes down to the definition of temporary. It's just, if it's there for 3 days, that's still temporary. But that's different from what it says in our definitions, where it's
right.
removed at the end of the day.
Right.
Yes. Would anybody from the public like to speak to this?
Hi, my name's Alicia. We met last time.
Could you give me your last name, Alicia?
Alicia Laganis. I'm the owner of Putter's Village. I'm sorry my husband couldn't make it. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I don't really have anything prepared. I just knew that it was going to be an open discussion, so I wanted to just come and be a part of it and be supportive. Really, again, we're just kind of stuck with the legality of it, I guess. We were instructed to talk to the interim town planner. My husband did that, and he was given the brush off and told that it wasn't going to be discussed because it's an interim position. So once again, we're just in a position where we're not given any real answers. If it's a matter of the food truck has to come and go every day, great. If it has to stay stationary, we can do that too. I know I brought it up last time. There are other businesses that are openly accepting food trucks onto their lots. I've been watching them for the last month and a half, 2 months since we were told to cease and desist. Not like I said, I'm a big supporter of them, of the food trucks, obviously. I think it's wonderful, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody. It's just extremely frustrating on my end to it's just the runaround. And I know you, this panel, are not responsible for figuring out this dilemma. It just seems wherever we're kind of directed, nobody wants to deal with the dilemma. So as somebody who is following the rules and watching a friend struggle to pay her bills because she's following these guidelines, like I said, it's just incredibly frustrating. And there are no answers. We've been given no solid answers. So again, we're just frustrated. We do plan on attending the zoning board meeting. I think it's in another week or so, 2 weeks maybe, and see where we go from there. We were made aware that the town did host an event and they had food trucks. My daughter is a student at Brewster Academy. They have food trucks twice a year. They bring them all in for the kids. We love Brewster, so I'm not picking on Brewster. It's just, why are other businesses allowed, but Putter's Village has been told no, to stop? So that's just where we're at, and no answers. Very frustrating.
So I appreciate your concern. Unfortunately, we don't have any answers
I know
for you
you
tonight.
guys don't, I'm
but
sorry.
we're
And I
certainly
didn't plan on talking.
willing
so.
to look into the question at least.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, moving forward is our best. I know they filed hardship paperwork, so that's in the process. I guess my question for you guys, because you know better than I do, is the zoning board meeting the next proper step for us? Is that, we would like to see her back there, for the fall, if possible, and definitely for next season. Like I said, we don't profit off of her being there. We don't charge her for being at our lot. We just like to support another small business in town. So would that be my next step, is the zoning board meeting? Because
So I would guess that the zoning board may be able to grant you a special exception
okay.
to be able to do that.
No.
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
CBA,
So that's the thing.
No,
At least you might be able to speak.
ZBA.
It seems like as a town, we have to be consistent, and we're not being consistent.
Yes, and it
That's
comes
my
down to
frustration.
enforcement.
It's
But I think
incredibly
the
inconsistent.
consistency won't be what you want to hear.
You know,
Unless we change the zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
just like to also,
If you could introduce yourself, please.
my name's Jeff Heber. I'm Amy Kelly's partner, Meat and Eat Food Truck. We go to Putter's Village. But we're a self-contained, gray water, fire suppression, everything, like licensed through the state, insured. Like, this shouldn't be like a very big issue, like private property. Like being there a few days a week, whatnot, like applying for whatever, every single place we go through the town, like it just keeps getting kicked down or a bull crap excuse as to why we can't be there. And we present the proper paperwork like, that's wrong. We have this, we have that. Like what you're saying right here doesn't make sense. So we just we were there all last year. Not a heart, nobody said oomph, whatever. She had a great year. She provided excellent, her culture, her food to the town of Wolfeboro. That's amazing. Somebody from Thailand coming here and putting their heart and soul into giving us a taste of their culture. She's an amazing person, and she deserves some justice, like some clear-cut answers, not the bureaucratic bullcrap.
the problem seems to be that under the zoning ordinance, they are not permitted.
Yeah.
The only way the planning board can address it is if there's a change in the zoning ordinance which would permit them. And the fact that, it hasn't been enforced in the past, or it isn't enforced equally, is really inexcusable. Everybody should be on the same playing field. And, you brought in, you're feeling that food trucks would be a good thing in Wolfeboro. And that's something I think the planning board has agreed to look at.
Yeah.
But, it could come in as a warrant article, or, the problem will be, of course, that other restaurants and people who are established in town will not want the competition.
And I know, I'm from Wolfeboro,
Yeah.
born and bred, born at Huggins Hospital. I know just about every business owner, and I go to their restaurants, and they have nothing but positive thoughts of AIM being there. They understand the overrun, the inability for them to, take care of everybody and manage that. Like, they have been nothing but helpful and suggested. They give us all kinds of suggestions. Guy at Seabird, Larry at Louis, his whole family. These people love it. Josh Cleland at Marker 21, these guys are all they visit Ames food truck. So it's not maybe a few restaurants, but maybe that's because their food isn't so good. And that's on them. If people aren't coming to your sit-down restaurant, it's not because a food truck is ruining your restaurant. It's your issue, food trucks were strictly to go. So I don't see how we're stealing from any restaurant in Wolfeboro. Mm-hmm. I think her food's just a lot better.
I also have another thought. See, food truck parks in the parking lot. It's not doing anything. When does it turn into, no, you can't be there? When they open the window? When they take money? When they actually hand out food and take money? When does this wrong thing happen? When you break it down into little pieces?
When they park for
Because it's
more
not
than
really
2
wrong
hours.
if
It
she
looks
wants to
like
have a
it's-
grill and
it's a
sell
vending
hot dogs
cart.
while you're golfing. That's not wrong. But the fact that they handed
We
it
have
through
to
the
go
window
with
from a truck,
what's in the ordinance.
but I'm just saying, this is,
Yeah.
when you look at the little bits, what's the part where it's wrong?
Well, as it said, as I read earlier, the actual verbiage here, it says, for the purpose of the Wolfeboro Planning and Zoning Ordinance, vending carts or vehicles are prohibited. No, I understand.
Yes, right.
And
But I
certainly
do know that the code
enforcement is a
officer
different
is following up on a couple complaints that we've had, at least. That's what I know about, but.
And like I said, I want to make it clear, we're not trying to pick on anyone. We're locals too, you know. My kid, like I said, she goes to Brewster. My husband's born and raised in Wolfeboro, so we're not trying to step on anybody's toes. We just want a level playing field. If food trucks are a no-go in Wolfeboro, that's the rule, then there shouldn't be food trucks anywhere, not at my establishment, which is what you guys are saying, and I appreciate that. Like I said, we just can't get any solid answers. It's just an endless loop. We're just directed. So I know I keep asking, what do I do? What do I do?
I guess I have a question, and you may have perspective on this, but, you know, if the Board of Selectmen or the Planning Board was going to allow food trucks, you know, should they allow 5? Should they allow 10? Should they allow 50?
That's a very good question.
You know, is there some number which should be investigated as an appropriate number? Or is that something which is perhaps irrelevant? I really don't know, but I think that's one of the things that needs to be looked at if there's going to be a change.
I agree. And I think my circumstance is, well, I mean, somewhat unique. I am in C1. We are in the business commercial district, Putters Village is, and we are a private lot. So I understand the town not wanting food trucks scattered up and down Main Street. I wouldn't want that either. Or parking in the limited public parking that we already have. But that's questions as to how many should be allotted. Maybe that's a private property question versus just food trucks willy-nilly throughout town. I don't know how that works.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
I guess the other point I'd raise, I'm sorry. Ann, would you like to speak?
Yeah, so you've really got me confused.
Could you introduce yourself?
Ann Blodgett,
Thank you.
representing myself. But there are situations like Brewster was mentioned, and think of them as a catering truck. They're a caterer. So are you going to start regulating food trucks when they come for an event on a private property?
Weddings.
I don't know the answer to that.
But I mean, I think we've got better things to regulate. So I think you need to define, you know, think of it as a catering truck rather than a restaurant. And I think that helps clarify. Now, if somebody's going to park and be permanent, that's a whole different scenario than somebody coming to a nonprofit to provide food. So are you going to ask Brewster and everybody who brings in a truck that already has its own permits to be additionally permitted?
If they come in as a temporary event, then they can come in.
You mean come in to the Board of Selectmen?
No, well, if you have a temporary event permit, which is going to include serving food, the food truck can come in with the food.
But Brewster has their events and other nonprofits have their events. They're not coming into the Board of Selectmen for a temporary event permit. That's what I'm trying to say. There are many people, if you're having a wedding and you have a food truck, are you going to start getting into that? Think about it. If you think of it as a catering facility that's going to move in and move out, that should be hands off. I mean, we got way too many other things that aren't regulated that need attention other than, you know, suddenly, plus these food trucks are highly regulated on their own. So they don't come into, what?
By the state.
Yes. So they don't come into Brewster or wherever without, you know, Board of Health and all that stuff. So I think I was getting confused, like, oh my God, we're going for this broad brush approach of all food trucks are bad, but they are providing a valuable service to nonprofits who have an event.
Yeah, the other point I'll bring up, and not just for food trucks, but for vending carts in general, as I said in the regulations, there are no vending carts permitted, yet that seems to conflict with the 4 locations that the Board of Selectmen authorized for hawkers and peddlers in town.
It's a very good point, and I don't know why it hadn't occurred to me prior, and I might end up kicking myself for this later on. But my husband and I every year we host a wounded warrior hunt. It's a very big deal. They come from different parts all over the country. We host a bunch of the locals and the local businesses, and a lot of people donate, and it's a wonderful, wonderful event. And we have the event catered by a food truck. And granted, our property isn't right here in town, but we are technically in Wolfeboro, and it's just occurring to me. Or we have somebody come in and do a pig roast, and they come in with their truck. So is that, just to back, yeah. I mean, so the law or the rule in the board is vague, and I hope I didn't just really get us in trouble, So, but anyway, yes, like she said, that's a very valid point. That's a very good point, is where's the line drawn?
Thank you. Any more comments from the board?
Well, I think among all of the town departments, because it doesn't fall on the shoulders of just one, we should be consistent across the board, no matter what that decision is, because it does seem to be willy-nilly at the moment.
I would also suggest that a caterer coming in for a wedding is, I think, quite different from a food truck that is there on a regular basis with perhaps a very good clientele. Not to say that either of those is bad, but there is a difference, I think, in that particular mode of operation. And, if there were people who came and catered an event for the Wentworth Watershed Association, but I wouldn't put them in the food truck department. They're caterers. They bring stuff in, they cook. So anyway, the point being is that I think there are gradations that need to be delineated so that you can end up then making a fair assessment. And I'm not saying any of these should be prohibited or even allowed. Well, I think that the caterers and weddings and things like that probably should be allowed. But anyway, I think it's something that needs to be looked at, and it's not an easy path.
Well, I think the temporary issue is one. What is temporary? And then, does it always have to be not-for-profit? That seems like another one that needs to be ironed out.
Well, I'd say it certainly needs further examination.
Yeah.
But I don't think we yet know who should lead that or which direction it's going to go in.
Well, it is in the zoning ordinance, so,
Yes.
yeah.
So I think it probably would be worthwhile for the planning board council to look at the definition of vending cart and how that might affect or be affected by other areas of Wolfeboro ordinances.
And have a look at what is happening now and why are the ones that are allowed.
Yes, well, a lot of that, I think, comes down to enforcement,
Yeah.
which would come back ultimately to the town manager. All right, let's close that topic and go on to...
Okay, well, how are we going to proceed? I mean, are we going to ask the town attorney for?
Yeah, I would propose that we talk to the planning board attorney first.
Yeah, right.
Yes. So I'll discuss that Thursday with the interim planner, and we'll figure out how to proceed.
Why would we talk to the planning board attorney at this point?
Well, my thought is that would be the best place to get an opinion on how the definition in the zoning ordinances would affect other areas. Do you have a different suggestion, Roger?
Well, I think right now it prohibits them from a zoning standpoint. I think that the selectmen, under their authority, have the hawkers and peddlers license ordinance that addresses that. And I think if we want to address them, we would do it under the zoning ordinance, which we have full authority to do.
Certainly, we have the ability to do whatever we like under the zoning authority. I guess my question was, is permitting food trucks, even as part of an event permit, permissible if it's in conflict with the zoning ordinance?
I would say yes.
I think it's worth 10 minutes of the attorney's time
That was my
just to
suggestion
find
as
out the
well, yeah.
question. And then we'll all know.
Any other comments?
Okay, so we're going to ask our attorney to look at it.
Well,
and
no,
then-
I think I'll first have a discussion with Shauna,
Okay.
Shauna Saunders, and then likely briefly get a opinion from the attorney. Not a formal opinion, just a consult, I would say. And we'll see how we want to proceed based on what comes out of those meetings.
If we're going to get an opinion from the town's attorney, I think the question being posed should be in writing and the response should be in writing. Because the question you ask determines the answer you get.
All right, why don't we, go ahead, Jane.
I sort of feel at this point that I'm sorry, I don't know the name of your truck. I've seen it, but I'm sorry? Oh, Meet and Eat. I almost feel like they're the ones who deserve an answer as to why they can't be there, and I almost feel like they should just be there until they get that answer. Because there certainly are other vendors, other food trucks around that apparently are not legal, and these people have been, I think, singled out. And so I almost feel like, talk to, I don't know, their attorney or a town attorney or something, is to say, why are we being singled out? You tell us why we can't be there. Otherwise, we feel we have the right to be there.
Well, so right
Okay,
now
but
there
that's
is a
why we
cease and
suggested
desist.
they go to the ZBA to get a special exception.
Oh, boy,
Because
okay.
that was the best that we could do when they first came, so.
I'm just trying to throw out some
Yeah, right, I was just telling you.
So to Roger's point earlier about the question that we ask will determine the answer that we get, I would propose that the question we can start with perhaps is, does the Board of Selectmen have the ability or authority to permit vending carts in Wolfeboro? Would anybody like to suggest a different phrasing?
Say that again?
Does the Board of Selectmen have the ability or authority to permit vending carts in Wolfeboro?
For special events?
Well, I'm just throwing it out there. If you want to limit it to special events, we can do that. I'm just giving a more broad question.
I would add under the temporary event permit process that they have.
No,
Well,
period.
you've got the hawkers
Period.
and peddler as well as the
Yeah.
food truck issue. And the hawkers and peddlers the answer is RSA 41 something or other, I think.
Well, maybe then my addition would be for example, special events. In other words, that would be a possibility. You're going to get a perhaps better answer. I don't know. In other words,
Well, it's a broad question, so he's asking that broad question, so the answer should be, oh, is it permitted by zoning?
but
At which point,
it may
he'll
end up-
say,
It may end up focusing on what presently the Board of Selectmen are actually doing, which is they are giving permission for food trucks at special events.
Right.
And so therefore, if you just say, is it permissible for them to do this, for example, at special events or other places? I mean, it may end up just defining the question and getting perhaps a better answer rather than getting a yes, no, and then where do you go?
So I'll rephrase that then to, does the Board of Selectmen have the ability or authority to permit food vending carts for special events or other places?
Other reasons.
Other reasons. Okay. Okay. Any other comments?
Do you just email back and forth, or do you ever speak? I'm nosy. When you talk to the lawyer, is it talking, or do you guys just email back and forth?
We've done both, but to Roger's point, if we're going to do this properly, we should have it in writing. So we don't want, in this case, an oral conversation because we want it recorded.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
Starting point.
Yeah, it's a starting point for the conversation. We don't know where it's going to go.
Okay, she's going to know to look in the zoning ordinance because that's what you're going to say. Right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
I'm going to reference the 175 definition that I previously read.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
All right.
assume we'll keep this on the agenda too, moving
Yeah.
forward, so.
Yeah, so I expect for the next meeting, we'll have the results of this discussion.
Right, yeah. Okay.
I have one quick piece of other business.
Go ahead, Roger.
No, just a sec.
Sorry.
Somebody.
We have one more comment, I think.
Yeah, Marge Hart. And I would like to back up what Jane said. Selective enforcement's an issue in this town, and until it can get its stuff together, you should allow people to do something until it's proven that everybody can't. That's my opinion. This is on private property, and there's too many people, too many hands in it. It's going to take a while, as we know, to get it resolved. So if it's through the code enforcement officer to enforce this, then he should be enforcing it for everybody, not just this one person. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, right, no.
Any other comments?
I received an email from the Lakes Region Planning Commission that the New Hampshire Planning and Land Use Regulation booklet for 24 and 25 would be available shortly. And I'm not sure who is responsible for ordering them from the town, but we should make sure that copies are ordered for everybody on the planning board. They also should be ordered, I would think, for the Board of Adjustment and the Conservation Commission. And I think the deadline is, well, I can send somebody the email if they want to see it, but I think it's early October to get the orders in. And the price is $13 a book, and I think as Steve and I can attest, those of us who haven't been able to take advantage forked out something like $90 a year for one of these things. And that may have been actually lower than what I paid the last time.
All right, Roger, thank you. When I speak with Shauna on Thursday, I'll bring that up.
Okay.
Can it be brought in electronic form rather than
Yes,
paper?
there's three selections. You want me to send you the email?
That'd be great, thank you.
Send it to you?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I like trees.
Yeah, yes, there's three versions. I think there's a totally digital and paper, and then a paper. I believe are the three. But I'll send that email out so everybody can look at it.
Thank you.
Is this like, if it was the digital form available for like everybody, would it be on the website?
I don't
So
believe
anybody
so.
could reference it?
I would assume it's licensed.
It's.
If we got the electronic version, I mean, could it be put on the website so anybody could reference it? Is it that kind of a book, or is it closely held?
I mean, you have to buy the digital version.
No, I think what Julie is asking is if you buy the digital version, could you then post it on the website for everybody to reference?
You're talking about something like this. And I would say, I would assume not, but.
Yes,
So then it becomes secret.
I would assume it's copyright protected so that you couldn't share it.
Yes, but I'm also looking at the other flip thing is I want everybody to read it, but nobody can have access to it.
Well, anybody can have access to it. They just have to pay
Or
for
unless
it.
it would be something that would be noted on the planning board page that, oh, this book is available in the planning office if you'd like to look at it.
Well, we could certainly make a copy available in the public library.
That too, that would be a good thing. Because I'm sure there's other people around that aren't part of our boards that might want to look at it.
Well, I'll look into see if we can make one available at the library. The last item on the agenda is, I'm sorry, not the last item. Before we go to the minutes, we'll open For general public comments, would anybody like to speak on any other topic from the public? Seeing nobody coming up, we'll move on to approval of the minutes from Planning Board minutes from August 20th, 2024. Anybody have any comments or corrections on it?
On page 4, talking about welfare of the community and these kinds of things.
Peter, we can't hear you.
And it seems like I remember that I ended up saying something about what is the criteria for being grandfathered. In other words, the existing VRBOs, rental places, what constitutes being grandfathered. And I think that there was the reference that that was going to be decided by a lawyer and was something else. It was not going to be decided by us.
Where is this in the minutes?
There is nothing in there about that.
Where do you think it should have occurred?
It should occur the middle of page 4.
It is sort of at the very end of the paragraph before the bullet paragraph.
Okay.
Yes.
Grandfathered use, including establishment of council. Okay. I apologize for not seeing that.
All right. Any other comments?
Yes, on page 2, and where Tyler Young, I believe at the end it should be built, not build.
I'm sorry. Oh, Bill. Where is this, Roger? I'm sorry.
It's midway down the page. You have Tyler Young, Roger Murray, Tyler Young, and it's the end of the Tyler Young. Any sort of access built.
Built. I see it. Thank you.
And then under item 4, discussion budgets, the motion passed 7-0, but when you get to the end, you have the August 6 minutes on a 6-0, and the votes above that on a 6-0, and then it goes down to the adjourned voted passed 7-0, and the minutes don't state that Julie was appointed to sit in Vaughn's absence. I don't remember that happening, but I don't know whether if it didn't, then all the votes would be 6-0.
Julie, do you remember if I asked you to sit?
I did not sit last meeting.
I don't.
We had enough people.
No.
We had a full board.
No, Vaughn was
No,
absent.
Vaughn was absent.
Vaughn was absent.
I think I think that Leanne is fairly.
Well, no, I was not asked to sit, but there was nothing formal to see anyway.
My recollection is that I was interested that Vaughn's absence was not replaced by an alternate. So I believe that it didn't happen. So I think that it was 6-0 all the way through.
All right, so the minutes here are correct.
Except for the adjournment.
Well, and
Yes.
for under 4 discussion items at the end of the 2025 budget,
Page 3.
page 3.
Page 3. Page.
Yeah,
So I wasn't at
if-
the
if-
meeting, but I have one that made me laugh out loud. It was page 6. Peter Goodwin requested the locust map.
Before you move forward there,
yes.
sorry.
Yes.
So with what Roger just pointed out with regard to the budget, he's correct that if Julie had not been appointed to sit and Vaughn was absent, then it wouldn't be a 7-0 vote.
Yeah,
It'd be
right.
6-0, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, go ahead, Vaughn.
Sorry, page 6. Peter Goodwin requested the locust map. I don't think we have a locust map.
Well, I think we need
Green.
Where are they?
We don't know where they are. So let's cross out the T.
I read right past it.
Yeah, I picked it
I
up.
was laughing.
So what is it that I was requesting, the local?
Locust map.
The locust map.
All right, so just to recap with regard to the votes, so we have it clear for the amended minutes. On page 2, we're going to change build to built.
Yep.
Then for item 4, the vote on the discussion items should be 600 instead of 700. Then on page 6, it should read, Peter Goodwin questioned the locus map, not locust. And on page 7, the votes should all be 600, so therefore the adjournment should be motion passed 600 rather than 700.
Right.
So for future, even if we're having the little meeting, I'll call them, and we
Work
have,
sessions?
and we have someone who's missing, should you appoint an alternate to fill in the spaces even for those then?
It could be useful even for things
right.
like,
Because we never did.
yeah.
Yeah,
You know?
right, no, it was sort of, it was an oversight thing.
Certainly we could do that, yeah. All right. Would anybody like to make a motion with regard to these minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second,
Kathy seconds, all in favor?
Abstain.
aye.
One abstention, everybody else is in favor? And no opposed. All right, thank you. Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
1 second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you for your time.